Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. I'm Simply G, and today I'm going to be showing off all of the manga that I got for this month of July 2020. There's I guess I'd say a normal amount of stuff that I got. Quite a few debuts, quite a few things that I'm really excited to talk about. So rather than spend too long on this intro, I'm going to just get straight into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. So first up, I got a couple art books this month. These are ones that I got from Mandarake, so they are technically secondhand, but are in perfect condition as per usual. Ooh, they have stickers! I didn't even realize that. But these are both books that I've been meaning to get for a while, just haven't gotten around to it, unfortunately, until now. And that the first one is the Honey and Clover Illustrations book by Chika Umino. So this is obviously artwork from her smash hit, well, I say smash hit, manga, Honey and Clover, which is about a group of college students who attend a art school, and it follows their lives, all the drama surrounding their relationship, their love life, and it's great. It's really, really good. And then, of course, this being set in an art school, there is, of course, this persisting question of like talent versus hard work versus like being an accomplished genius versus after graduation becoming a not being like this passionate artist, but working within industry and not necessarily being or doing the thing you expected to do. I love Honey and Clover. It's phenomenal. I love it. I love it. And Chika Umino, her art style is just gorgeous. As per usual, we have at the back like how mangaka actually color their artwork. This is fairly typical for art books. And you can see their stickers. I didn't know there was stickers, but I'm really happy now that I do know. And then, so really, really great mix of artwork. Oh, and also, look, secret sketches under the under the dust jacket, which is really cool. I love it when art books have little extras like this as well. I highly recommend this art book if you're a fan of this mangaka or if you're a fan of the series, both. If you haven't seen the anime adaptation of Honey and Clover, I highly recommend it. It is now newly available on Blu-ray from Discotek, both seasons, which is great because the anime is great. The manga is a little bit harder to get. A couple of the volumes are out of print, most notably Volume 8. I do own the entirety of the series, and it is 10 volumes in all. You can buy it digitally as well, so it's not... you can still read it all, but you aren't necessarily going to be able to buy all of them physically if you don't already own it. Anyway, great series. Love it. And really, 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 really happy to finally own this art book, which is one that's kind of been glaringly missing from my art book collection for far too long. Next, I have another art book, kind of art book. It also has like character and concept designs and stuff for Toei, for number 6. This is for the number 6 novels, the art that's done for them by this designer. At the very beginning, it has a whole bunch of the gallery for this series, another series that I absolutely love. I love the anime of it. I love the manga of it. Never read the novels because they are not available in English, but highly, highly recommend it if you are wanting a genre sci-fi story, kind of post-apocalyptic series with queer characters It's really, really, really good. I mean, it's a little bit of a mess at the end, but it's decently solid. I really like the series. When it first came out, it was a little ahead of its time. I think a lot of people were quite harsh on it, but the anime is great. I think it's out of print though now currently, which is really sad. And the manga is 9 volumes from Kodansha. And I am really happy that I finally got this. This book is expensive, okay? I got it from Mandarake as well, like my other book. And I didn't pay full price for it. It was cheaper than normal, but it's still a pretty expensive book considering that it's way, way, way shorter than, a typical art book. Because this isn't really an art book. It does have illustrations in it, but it is more so, as I said, concept designs and interviews and stuff like that. So unless you're a huge fan, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this art book, but this book for just the art, but it does have some gorgeous, gorgeous illustrative pieces in it. Toei is a phenomenal artist. I really like their stuff. So I've been meaning to get this one for years. This is probably one of the very first art books that I ever wanted to get, or books that contained artwork in it, I should say. Ever since I started collecting art books, but it was just kind of out of my price range for far too long. But thankfully, I guess somebody, I don't know what happened, but there was a decently price reduced copy on Mandarake, and so I snatched it up whilst I still could. So finally I own it. But yeah, so really, really happy to have this one in the collection as well. So first up is a debut title from Seven Seas, one that I've been really looking forward to, and that is Love Me for Who I Am by Kata Konoyama. This is an ongoing LGBT manga, or manga with LGBT themes, about a non-binary high school student who doesn't have very many friends, or any friends, and one day their classmate introduces Mogumo to his older sister's Otokonoko bar, encourages them to start working there as a way to make friends and feel accepted and be around people who will understand them. Unfortunately, he's under this presumption that Mogumo is presumably a trans girl, trans woman, because his older sister is a trans woman. And so that's what he's familiar with. A lot of the other waitresses at this Otokonoko bar are within the LGBT community generally, but all of them fit within the gender binary. They are not non-binary like Mogumo, and that sort of causes a little bit of friction between the characters. If you're not familiar with Otokonoko, that phrase, it means kind of, I think a close literal translation for English. Well, otoko is it's two words that are like girl and boy, right? So a close English translation would be like a femme boy, someone who's assigned male at birth, who dresses or is presented in a girly way, but with the knowledge that they're still boys, right? And all of the different characters, all of the different kids who work at this bar are there for different reasons. There's one who's just kind of a cis guy who just likes dressing up in this sort of style and he sees it as cosplay. He sees it as a way to, just become someone else for a little while. There's also another cis guy who is gay, who uses it as a way to kind of, I guess, relieve himself, because when he's normally, as he presents himself as a guy, he has to always hide his relationship with his boyfriends because of discrimination and things like that. Whereas when he's dressed up like a girl, he doesn't have to worry about that. So it's freeing for him in that sense. There's another character who is a trans girl. And she uses it obviously as a way to feel more comfortable with who she feels she is inside. And there's a really great discussion of using the word, the label otokonoko, the reclamation of that word, both in this manga and in real life. Like, that's something that's currently happening. And the discussion of labels and like who feels comfortable with them and why they feel comfortable with them versus others who are not comfortable with them, I think is a really, really great, and handled really well. Obviously, as someone who is personally not non-binary, I am cisgendered, I can't speak to how like accurate the non-binary representation is in this book, but I will say that from majority of the people I have heard who have read the series, reviewed the series, aside from one notable no exception, who are non-binary have said that this is a really nuanced take. That one exception did cause a lot of controversy, a lot of backlash. I personally think there was problems with it. I will say that there was a lot of very good and very relevant discussion that was made, and a lot of points that reviewer made that I wouldn't have noticed, and I do appreciate having that perspective. And they are totally allowed to not like a series as well. I think that's valid. There was a lot of backlash and a lot of mean-spiritedness and like just really not good stuff that came out of people reacting to that review. And whilst there was a lot of legitimate criticism, there's also a lot of really not legitimate and terrible stuff that was done. So yes, that nothing to do with my perception of it. My thoughts are my own. But I really did enjoy this first volume. I look forward to volume 2. I've heard it just continues to get better and better. If you are wanting a LGBT manga, or if you like manga with this cutesy design and you don't mind a story about talking about gender and the gender binary and that sort of thing, or if you are wanting more non-binary representation, then check it out. It seems to be pretty well liked by most everyone. So yeah, it was a really, really good, solid first volume, and I look forward to the next. So next is a single volume release that's a little bit older, bit older. I've been wanting to get this for a while, but it was really, really low priority. I don't even know if this is even technically in print anymore, but I was able to get it from Kinokuniya, online at least. And this is Hiraki Samura's Emerald and Other Stories. This is by the creator of Blade of the Immortal and Vagabond. So if you're a fan of that, these are just a collection of short stories. Also, Wave Listen to Me is his newest work. And it's just it's just a mix of short stories, all different sorts. Some stuff that gets pretty twisted, which is kind of typical of Samura. I'm gonna say this straight up. I bought this mainly because there's a character in this book, in one of these stories that has my name. And my name, like, they have the same name as me, and it's kind of a unique name, which doesn't show up a lot in media. So I was like, hey, that's exactly like what twigged me onto this back in like 2013 when this first came out. And I just never bought it until now. But yeah, it's a really solid little mix of stuff. I mean, Samura has a pretty decent balance of like humor and then more like serious or messed up drama, and a lot of action. He's very consistent. And yeah, I don't actually know if this is still in print or not. I don't think so. And I bought this for like the most self-absorbed reasons. but it was a good time, and I do like Samura's work generally. So I didn't feel too bad about going into it blind. And I'm sure I'll be able to talk about it in next month's podcast as well. So yeah, Hiraki, Samura's Emerald and Other Stories. I think it's a collection of like, I want to say there's like 5 or 6 main stories, and then there's little bits and bobs, like snippet, couple pages stuff in there as well. So, but there's a lot of different stories in here too. So yeah, it's a good little mix. Next is another Dark Horse release. This one is much newer. It's the most recent volume of this series that's been released, and a series that I am really excited to continue purchasing and supporting, and that is Mob Psycho 100 Volume 5 by One. This follows the story of middle school student Mob who has psychic powers, ESP powers, and is incredibly strong. And it's funny. This particular volume, they are fighting the Evil Claw Association. But yeah, despite him having, super psychic powers, he works as kind of the part-timer at a shady conman's store business where he claims to be a true psychic, but basically just takes advantage of Mob's powers. And it's about Mob and his life and sort of existing as this kind, mild-mannered, non-confrontational middle school kid in a world where people continuously try to take advantage of him, and the actual person who is taking advantage of him is kind of the best role model and like support system that he has, because he is taking advantage of him, but it's not for like bad things, right? Because one of the biggest messages about Mob in the series is that just because he has psychic powers doesn't inherently make him better or more important than anyone else. It's just a born talent that he happens to have. But obviously, from a human perspective, having like ESP psychic powers makes you incredible and like obviously an anomaly. And thus, generally, people who have these powers see themselves as like God's gift to man, like, oh, so important and smarter and, powerful compared to everyone else. And by having this grounding presence in his life, Mob has been able to avoid that. And I love Mob Psycho 100. I adore this series. Phenomenal anime. I'm sure many people have seen or know of at least. It's a 16-volume series in Japanese, so we are 5 volumes through. It's a little bit of a slow release from Dark Horse, but I just continue to buy it as it comes because I really hope we do see the entirety of the series. I've said it before with these volumes, but this is particularly my favorite of One's series. I don't dislike One Punch Man. In fact, I've enjoyed quite a bit of what I've read, but I don't find it as funny as Mob Psycho, and I don't feel like the message of One Punch Man is quite as consistent or hits quite as hard as Mob Psycho 100. And I think a part of that is the fact that One Punch Man was the series that got hugely popular. Obviously, it has the newer manga with a different artist. And so it hasn't... Mob was able to tell its story, and tell its complete story and then finish it. One Punch Man, I don't know about the webcomic, but the manga's still ongoing. There's still a lot going on in the manga. And so I feel like with a lot of popular stuff, it's just fallen victim to its own popularity. that's not to say that it's bad or that it's not enjoyable or that you shouldn't read One Punch Man, but out of the two, Mob Psycho 100 is definitely my favorite. It is definitely the one that I would recommend. And it's such a good time. It's really funny. Mob's such a good boy. I highly recommend the anime. And yeah, check it out. Next, we have another debut title. This is a Shoujo Beat title, one that I've been highly anticipating. I heard really good things about this series from a lot of people, but most notably Ray from Whimsical Pictures, who is a wonderfully dear friend. She really enjoyed this in Japanese, and so I was excited when it was licensed, so I could read it. And this is Volume 1 of Prince Freya by Keiko Ishihara. This is an ongoing manga about a teenage girl who lives just in the middle of the nowhere in a village with her mother. She has two childhood friends who are basically brothers to her, who are literal brothers to each other, who have since left to serve their kingdom of Tyr and as knights for the young Prince Edward. But unfortunately, there is trouble brewing between their kingdom and the neighboring one. Their violence and war is on the horizon. And so she kind of gets embroiled and caught up in all of this friction between the two factions. And she discovers that she was supposed to be taken to the palace by these two friends of hers because she bears a striking resemblance to the young prince. And there has been some terrible things happening, and the prince is on his deathbed. Like, they don't know if he's going to survive, so if he does die, it is asked of her to continue this, to create this facade, to uphold this facade that she is the prince, that he never died, in order to prevent war from breaking, from affecting this country. They don't want, the country does not want war, and so she must pretend to be the prince. Unfortunately, the prince does die, and shockingly, her childhood friend, the older, also dies, which means it's even more important that she pretends to be this prince. And so now the only people who knows her secrets are the royal family, obviously, the younger brother, who is also her friend, and the other leading knight, the White Knight, whereas the older brother was the Black Knight. This is the White Knight. He's kind of the right-hand man to the young prince, who is now sort of in charge of teaching her how to be, how to act, how to pretend to be this person whom she never really met. She doesn't know anything about, because the prince is beloved. He is beloved by the people. He's a wonderful strategist. He's bold and brave and inspiring, and she's kind of not any of that, and so now has to pretend to be that. It was a really good first volume, shocking. Apologies for the spoilers, but it is the first volume, so I don't know how much of a spoiler that's gonna be. But it was really good. I will also give my first impression video on this one. I mean, this is a pretty fun premise. I think the stakes are so high. The stakes are so high and this sort of thing. The drama is right there. And I really look forward to volume 2. I'm really happy that we're getting a lot of shoujo like this. I'm a big fan of this sort of shoujo story, and so if you're a fan of stuff like Dawn of the Arcana or Yona of the Dawn, or hell, even like Snow White with the red hair, I think you will definitely like this one. It was a really solid first volume. I'm really excited for the next one, and yeah, check it out if any of that sounds interesting to you. So next we have another debut. This is from the Shonen Jump line. This is another standard Viz sized manga. And this is one that has quickly become a lot of people's favorite. It is currently something I follow on the app, and I have done since the first chapter. It quickly caught a lot of people's attention, and yeah, it's really fun. It's really funny. I really enjoy it. It's one that most people seem to enjoy. And that is Volume 1 of Spy Family by Tatsuya Endo. So this is a action comedy about this character here, who is a elite spy. So there's two factions, two countries, and a lot of like political unrest. They currently have peace, but there's a lot of like stuff going on underneath the surface. He works for the opposing government as obviously a spy, and he's the best of the best. He's amazing at what he does, but he is put in charge of a new mission where he must infiltrate and get close to a particularly high-ranking official in the government. But the way to do that is because this guy is like really elusive. He rarely goes out, and the only real way that he would be able to is by infiltrating the school that his target's son attends. So for this mission, this elite spy, Twilight, must become a father. But not just a father. So in order to like get accepted to this elite school, which has very strict, rigorous guidelines, he must find someone to be his wife so that they look like, you know, the perfect two-parent household with a brilliant child. Yes. So, initially he adopts just an orphan from a very shady orphanage, just so that there's no paper trail, who is this little girl called Anya. And so we have Lloyd, who's our spy. We have Anya, who is, she knows what's going on. She knows everything that's going on because she is secretly a telepath. Nobody else knows she can read minds, but she knows everything that's going on. And then Twilight's like fake wife is this character here, Yor, who she gets into this situation because she is secretly an assassin for her current government, right? So she kills people secretly, but she's trying to not cause suspicion because she doesn't want to be accused of being a spy. And the fact that she is a woman nearing 30 and still single, it's very suspicious. So she kind of jumps at the opportunity when Lloyd is like, oh, I need, like, I'm my daughter, I'm a single father. She's like, this is my opportunity. So they're both of the adults are in this fake relationship in order to, you know, protect themselves and also like fulfill their mission. And neither of them know that the other is this, but their daughter, she knows everything because she can read everyone's mind, but she can't, like, she's not going to tell them because then, like, she doesn't want her family to fall apart, and she doesn't want to be returned to the weird lab that, you know, created her. And it's really sweet. It's really heartwarming. It's really funny. It's legitimately, like, I love this series. It continues to just get better and better. Anya's so cute. And for a fake relationship, dang it, Yor and Lloyd are wonderfully matched. If you're a fan in fan fiction of fake dating to real dating, there's no real dating in this series as of yet, but ooh, if you're a fan of the fake dating or the fake marriage trope, then ooh, this is your shit, guys. 100% guarantee you will love this. It's lovely. It's funny, as I said. All of the characters are really likable, especially Anya, their daughter. And it's just, ooh. It balances the comedy and the action really, really well. And you really start to root for this little family because you just want things to work out. And they, despite it all being fake, all being, built on lies, you really care about them, and you can tell that they really care about each other despite everything. And yeah, everyone go read it. It's currently 30 chapters long on the Viz app and Manga Plus and all of those. So yeah, it's definitely one that I would recommend you read. It's definitely one that I've enjoyed ever since it first came out. So yeah, Spy Family, great investment. Another one I'll do a first impressions on. But yeah, so check it out if you haven't. Next, we have some older releases. These I both got from Better World Books, which kind of doesn't finish my collection for this series, and that is High School Debut Volume 12 and 13. This series is done by Kazume Kawahara, and this is technically, you can see on the back here, 13 is the final volume, but, so later, Viz released this series in 3-in-1 releases, but also in those 3-in-1 releases, released volumes 14 and 15, or the 2-volume sequel to this series, which they never released in singles. I don't know why. So I still need to get the last 3-in-1 so I can actually get the sequel that's set a year later. But as of now, my collection of the main series is finished. So this is an earlier work from the mangaka of My Love Story. I really like that series a lot. I kind of enjoy this one a little bit more. I like both of them, but this one I don't know. I like some of the stuff that happens in this more, and I like the relationship kind of evolution to this one more. My Love Story is wonderful, but there's not a lot that actually evolves in the relationship a lot. They're happy and completely in love from the get-go, which is great, wonderful. But that means that sort of a lot of the drama happens from outside of that, and the characters don't really change a huge amount. Whereas this one is a little bit different. So if you've never read High School Debut, this is the story of a teenage girl who's starting high school, obviously. And she wants to make her high school debut in which she will become popular and get a boyfriend and all that else. But the way she's going about it is she's a very sporty, kind of tomboyish type of girl. So in order to become more feminine, more like a girl who has a boyfriend, she takes all of this terrible fashion and love advice from teen magazines, which just doesn't suit her. And one day while she's out and about trying to find a boyfriend, she runs into this guy who's a couple years older than her, who basically is that doesn't suit you look terrible, and I don't know why you're so desperate to find a boyfriend, yada yada. And she's oh my god, you know everything about this. And his friends are you're really good at knowing what looks good on girls and how how people should be acting or whatever. He's really good at giving love advice or relationship advice, despite him not wanting to be in a relationship. And so she's will you be my coach in finding a boyfriend? you don't have to be my boyfriend. I just need your help to find a boyfriend and I'll leave you alone. And he's like, all right, I'll do it. Needless to say, they fall in love. And it's quite, I appreciate it a lot because it happens quite early on that they get together. So a large part of the relationship, or the large part of the series, is following their relationship, and the obstacles they have to overcome whilst being in the relationship, rather than like normally the obstacles of like getting into the relationship, which seems to be the more common route for this type of story. It's funny. It's fun. I really like both of the main characters. Even our main male character, who's kind of cynical and a little bit of a dick early on. He's well-intentioned, and he's cynical for a reason. Like he has legitimate reasons. But I just think that their relationship has a really nice dynamic to it. I think they're quite well suited. I think they perfectly show off like the opposites attract kind of dynamic, whilst also showing off like just because they're very opposite personalities doesn't mean that they can't get along, or that things won't work out. Yeah, I really liked this series. I only read it this year, thanks to another recommendation from Ray. This one is an older one, but if you're a fan of this sort of relationship dynamic, if anything I said sounded interesting, if you like My Love Story, which is the same creator, obviously, then I would encourage you to give this one a shot. I would personally say pick up the 3-in-1s versus the singles, just because, again, they don't have the last two like actual volumes in singles, which is the spin-off or the sequel. So yeah, I'm really happy and that I finally finished it, for one. If you're a fan of stuff like Lovely Complex as well, or Skip Beat even, this is probably going to be in your wheelhouse. It's a good time, and again, it's really likable. I think Kawahara does a really great job at making really likable characters, even if they aren't inherently relatable. That you want things to work out for them because they're just good kids. They're good kids and they're trying their hardest. Finally, for the standard-sized manga, we have another Shoujo Beat title. This is another new release, the most recent in this series, and that is volume 24 of Yona of the Dawn by Mizuho Kusanagi. I mean, what haven't I said about Yona at this point? It is incredible. I love it. It's wonderful. I particularly like how often this series surprises me, like genuinely impresses me with its development. It's not that it's inherently unpredictable, but it always never takes the easy route, if that makes sense. There's a lot of reintegration of characters in this particular volume, and it ends on a dang good cliffhanger, and I really like how it portrays the complexities of this particular situation that Yona finds herself in. There's a lot of dynamic movement to all of the moving pieces politically in this series, and watching both sides, Yona and her group, forge relationships with people and grow their own amount of supporters and people who are willing to stick their neck out for her, compared to the king, Suwon, who obviously has the power of being the king or the emperor or whatever, and thus like the military might and this established leadership position, and how although they're at odds, their values aren't inherently at odds either, and thus the prickly situation of having to work together, maybe when there's a lot of history there's a lot of bad blood, or and a lot of genuine worry and hope and investment in each other, but because of what's happened in the past, not being able to return to what had been their normal. It's fabulous. I think most people are reading Yona at this point. If you aren't, this is the story of a young princess who is ousted from the castle after the murder of her father, the emperor, by her cousin Suwon, who was also the object of her love. She had a big fat crush on him, but obviously he betrayed her and took the role of king for himself. But whilst escaping the castle with her other childhood friend and close childhood friend, reliant individual, and also her personal bodyguard, Huck, she and he discover that she may be the Crimson Dragon of legend, because previously in history, the Crimson Dragon King was blessed by the dragons, by dragons. They loved him, and thus bestowed inhuman powers upon some of his most important people, fighters, individuals, and allowed him to gain the power that was desperately needed, and thus created peace in their country. Yona is believed to now be the reincarnation of that Crimson Dragon King, and thus has to find the 4 dragons of legend, or their reincarnations at least, which she does over the course of the series, and now is trying to, reclaim the throne or fix and return peace to the kingdom that she kind of wasn't aware of, had ignored while she was, cloistered away in the castle, in the palace, when she was just a princess, just a sheltered princess from the world. I love the series. Everyone I know who's read it has deeply enjoyed it. It's great. It is ongoing. It's longer. I think there's 31 volumes currently in Japan, and I don't know it, or I couldn't think that it's wrapping up either. There's a lot to enjoy with Yona. It's wonderful. I wouldn't say there's magic necessarily, but there is a sort of supernatural element with the 4 dragon warriors, having kind of inhuman powers. And there's a lot of, I want to say like Korean influence, just with the style and like designs in this manga. It's not inherently Japanese feeling. It feels more, Korean, more so. But yeah, it's pretty dang good. It's pretty dang good, and it's one that I always like to get the newest volume, because it always makes me want to read more, and that's sort of the problem, because I consume it immediately and then I have to wait the couple months till the next volume, which sucks because it always seems to end on a cliffhanger. Dang it, it's so good. Read Yona of the Dawn and support your favorite shoujo beat titles. Okay, next we have some of the large trim size manga that I got for this month. The first one is another debut title, although I have read a lot of this series. It has recently just come to print. It was a digital first title, which recently transitioned to print, obviously. And that is Perfect World by Rie Aruga, Volume 1. And if you cannot tell from the cover, this is a romance story between two young adults. They're in their late 20s, who went to high school together. They were classmates, and our main female character, she had an interest in our main male character back in high school, and they reconnect in their high school reunion. But in the 10 years since, he suffered a serious accident and injured his spine, and thus now is in a wheelchair. So they hit it off once they reconnect and they start dating. And then our main character is learning the realities of, although she cares about this person, and although you'd never want to think of somebody as just their disability, of course, there is a very hard reality that comes with being with somebody who has especially a physical disability, in where they need a lot of medical supervision or a lot of medical attention on a very regular basis, like this guy that she knows and is dating. I really love this series. I've read 9 or 10 volumes of this in English from Kodansha's digital releases. This is another one I'm going to do a first impressions on. Obviously, it won't be my first impressions because I have read a lot of it, but this is a series that I really appreciate how it shows the realities of being paraplegic or being in a wheelchair. And it also shows the discrimination and sort of the inherent discrimination of society that is against the physically disabled, that able-bodied people don't even think about. One of the great things about this particular series is our main male character. He is an architect, and a lot of his focus is on accessibility and making areas accessible to people like himself who are in wheelchairs, who cannot get around the same way that people who are able to walk can. So a lot of his work is working with other people who are in wheelchairs for various different reasons, and making their lives easier, making their lives boundaryless, so they can live normal lives without having to rely on a nurse or a carer or a partner to help them, get around in their day-to-day life, or at home, right? So there's that, but it also doesn't shy away from, the aspect of this character being in a wheelchair isn't just a gimmick. It isn't just oh yes, it's, he can't walk and thus it's hard, he can't do everything that he could be able to do if he could walk. There's an aspect of that, but more so the issues and the main problems that could arise in their relationship because of his disability are more so about his health, his immediate and very obvious medical issues that come with having a spinal injury, and what will be the role of being, I guess, a carer, or being in a relationship with somebody who has more demanding medical needs than yourself means, and how prepared you should be and how comfortable you should be with that other person and doing things for that other person that you wouldn't have in a relationship with somebody who didn't have a disability like this, right? So I really like the series a lot. It's made me cry on multiple occasions. I really like both of the characters, and I also really like there's also an element to it that's kind of this, although it does have a lot of the realistic, like, yes, there is sometimes, like, yes, there are problems, and yes, you know, you have to be comfortable with, you know, having to deal with your partner's poop, or them having to go to the hospital on a semi-regular basis, or, you know, having to check that everything's going on right in the areas that they can't feel. And that can be hard, and that can be very demanding for a lot of people who aren't prepared for that in a relationship. But at the same time, there's also a really lovely feeling of, like, despite it maybe not making sense, despite there may be better options for both of these characters in their partner, like they might have better options for boyfriend or girlfriend. The fact that they care about each other more than that, the fact that despite that, they're willing to face whatever problems they have together, even if they are less prepared for that, or even if they have other people who would think they're making the wrong decision, is just like, oh, the power of love, man. It's done well. I really like that aspect of it. And it just makes you feel all warm and soft and fuzzy, and you want things to work out for these characters. I don't think this is a finished series. It is wrapping up, though, at least with volume 9 or 10, whichever one that I read recently. It's certainly kind of gotten to the end game. I don't see this being too much longer. But yeah, definitely pick it up. It is a josei series, for one. For two, it's a really well done look at disability, with multiple characters with disability as well. It has a real nuanced take on these characters' relationship with each other and the other people in their lives, and with society at large. And it's just a really sweet love story as well. It's really good, and I encourage you to pick it up if that sounds interesting, and if you haven't read it yourself. Next is an ongoing title from Viz. I got the first volume a couple months ago. This is one that I follow. You can follow it on the Viz Shonen Jump app, or Viz Shonen Jump service on their website. Not on the app, because it is too violent and doesn't fit within the app's terms and services. But I follow this on Manga Plus, because I read all of it before the middle chapters were taken down, and now I just keep up to date with the latest chapters. But this is volume 2 of Hell's Paradise Jigokuraku by Yuji Kaku. This is wonderful. This is an action series about a legendary ninja called Gabimaru, who is put on death row, but is unable to die because he is just, like, too good at what he does. He's unkillable. That's sort of the takeaway from him. And then he is assigned, he's given this opportunity to reclaim, or to get this, I guess, elixir of youth or elixir of immortality from this creepy island, along with a bunch of other criminals. They're being asked by the emperor or the shogun to reclaim this elixir, and whomever does, in a battle royale style of death race, will be granted a full pardon. Each of these criminals also is assigned an executioner, who, if this criminal decides to like just do their own thing and wants to escape or whatever, will behead them on the spot, thus encouraging them to not screw around and to actually do the thing, not escape. Our Gabimaru's executioner / partner is Sagiri, who is here on the cover. She's kind of our other main character, but I've read like 100 chapters of this. I'm up to date. And I love it. Again, this is another series that's kind of heading towards the end. It goes in a lot of really interesting directions. Once they get to this island, they discover that it's like a lot more dangerous than they were expecting. There's a lot of like really weird mutating monsters that will turn you into plant life and body horror galore, guys. If you're not a fan of body horror, then maybe avoid this one. But this is very violent. There's a lot of really great action in here. It definitely earns its explicit content warning, right? Not for anything salacious, but for the violence and kind of, oh my god, that's a lot of weird stuff happening. But something I really appreciate from this manga is that Gabimaru, despite being like this badass ninja guy, assassin, he's a very likable main character for one, but I also really like that this series doesn't have him and Sagiri as a romantic pair. There's no romantic interest, at least on his side, between them, because his main motivation is, the whole reason he was caught, the whole reason he was on death row was because he was trying to leave his group, and thus he was captured by the head of the group and sent to the police, because he wanted to get out of this life. He wanted to make a new start, right? Make a new start for himself and his wife, who's really his motivating factor. It's his whole reason he wants to get this, this restart everything, to get this pardon so he can live just a nice, peaceful life with his wife. And I adore that aspect of this series, and it's something that's very consistent throughout the story. Sagiri is really great as well. She's obviously she has a big dilemma in what she thinks of as right and what she thinks of as like correct or expected or more socially accepted when she comes to this island, and she learns more about the situation, and she learns more about these criminals, these death row criminals who now are all trying to find this elixir, right? Oh my goodness, I love this series so much. Yeah, it's exciting. It's horrifying. There's a big mystery element to it that does get answered, and you learn a lot about, there's a large cast, especially with these criminals and stuff, but it does get pared down quite quickly. And the remaining cast, you get really invested in. I think one of the great things of Kaku's writing is just how easy it is to like everyone, despite a solid portion of them being death row criminals, bad guys who've done some bad stuff. And you really believe the camaraderie that develops between all of these different people, and who come from very different backgrounds and who have very different sets of morals. Yeah, Hell's Paradise is dang wonderful, and I love it to bits. I'm really happy that we are getting it in print from Viz. And yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't yet, especially if you are a fan of like hyper violent action series, especially if you like ninja styles of stories or battle royale styles of stories, definitely check it out. If you like body horror stuff, creepy monsters, it's really, 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 really good. Next is the fourth and penultimate volume of Blank Canvas, My So-Called Artist Journey by Akiko Higashimura. I know people have gotten volume 5 already, which is the last one. I haven't gotten that yet, so I can't speak to that. I'm super jealous of everyone who already has the last volume. But this is a autobiographical manga about Higashimura and her experience as an artist and her struggle as an artist. And it's really an homage or a dedication to her art teacher, who is the one who really taught her about the realities of being an artist and her complicated relationship with him. It's so well done. I adore Higashimura's stuff. I'm her biggest fan, honestly, but Blank Canvas is uniquely different from her other stuff because obviously as a more personal story, I think anyone with sort of any creative background, whether that be as an artist or illustrator or any kind of anyone who's had a mentor who's influenced their passions, who's been that you've had a complicated relationship with, but who's given you the most solid advice, I think will be able to relate to this. Again, whether that be your passion being in art and illustration or writing or music or cooking or whatever it may be. I think this sort of mentor and mentee relationship, especially in a real life setting, is so valuable and is something that people need to I think cherish, because it can be very hard and very difficult to find that person in your life, right? So yeah, it's one that I've wanted to. I've been meaning to get this volume forever. I ordered it forever. It just didn't come to me until recently. Or I don't even know. It took forever to get to me because this volume has been out for a while. Obviously so long that the 5th volume is now out. And now I have to get that one. But yeah, so, Higashimura kind of goes without saying, in my opinion, you should be reading her stuff. But I think even if you're not a fan of Tokyo Tarareba Girls or Princess Jellyfish, this is one that deserves to be read, and I think a lot of people will gain something from it. And it's nice, in my opinion, that we are seeing an autobiographical story from this very popular creator, but seeing the struggle and the hard work and the time that it takes to get to where she is now. Obviously, I think, in my opinion, everyone who's successful is so because they seem like we don't see the hard work that successful people go through, right? Not every successful person. There's a lot of luck that goes into it as well, but when it comes to especially creative endeavors or like athletes, we as outsiders don't see the days, the weeks, the years of dedicating yourself to something for you to get to a level that seems like it's all talent or just, we have the outside perspective, and it's nice seeing these stories from within and showing people that, yes, even if you are born with, a talent to do something, if you don't work hard at it, if you don't work hard towards it, then, it's not... You're going to get overtaken by people who have put that hard work in. And, you know, no, success is never achieved overnight. Success, or at least success, is 99.99% hard work and practice and all these other things. And I'm sounding like, you know, one of those motivational posters or whatever, but it does, you know, it takes, sometimes when you're starting out, everyone can seem so much more talented than you and can do like all of this amazing stuff. But they have also worked the last 10, 15, 20 years on their craft to get to the point that they're at. And, you know, it's not, the most talented person will have to be able to work, like hone that craft, or else it's not, you know, then it's just a waste of talent, right? And again, that talent versus hard work argument. Anyway, Blank Canvas Volume 4, fantastic. I love it, and I definitely recommend people pick it up. Last but certainly not least, we have the latest volume of one of my favorite series, maybe ever. This is volume 2 of Blue Flag by Kaito. So this is the story of some high school kids, one who's in love with another, but that person is in love with another, and so there's a love triangle square thing going on here. Our main character is Taichi. He's a kind of sullen, unpopular high school boy who is childhood friends with a very popular boy at school called Toma, who's like this jock. Yeah, everyone likes him. He has a lot of friends. He's very outgoing and happy and kind. And they've known each other for a while, so they've been friends for a while, but they're very different personalities. But Toma is trying to rekindle their friendship now that they're in the same class again. Meanwhile, Taichi is approached by one of the girls in their class called Futaba, who confesses that she has a big crush on, well, she says she's interested in Toma and asks if Taichi will help her, get his attention and maybe, start to date him or whatever. Little does she know that over time, Taichi starts to catch feelings, and little do either of them know, but Toma will never be able to reciprocate the feelings that Futaba has for him, because he is harboring a big crush on Taichi. And then also we have a fourth character, Masumi, who's on the back here, who is Futaba's friend, and she has a big crush on her. So Toma and Masumi are sort of each other's confidants. They recognize in each other that they have feelings for someone that they believe will never reciprocate those feelings, and they're also watching the relationship between these two people that they care about grow, even if they're not inherently aware of it right now. And oh my goodness, guys, I've read this whole series. Okay, I'm not going into this series blind. I know exactly what's going to happen. I love this series. It's not perfect. It does have its missteps, but ultimately I adore this series. I love the characters. I love just everything about it. Just feels really genuine, especially this early stuff. All of these kids feel like real teenagers. They talk like real teenagers, and there's so much good stuff in here, right? Okay. my biggest thing with this, like, reading it is, especially like in romance dramas like this, and where all of these kids are really likable, I just always want things to work out. Like, I just want them to be happy. And that was my biggest thing when I finished the series, is that these characters were happy. And so I was happy, right? I know people have issues with the ending, but I did too, but I was happy that they were happy, and that's all I ever wanted for them. Anyway, we're not talking about the ending. We're talking about Volume 2. Volume 8 is the ending. We have a while to go before we get to that in English. Print, at least. Okay. This volume ends, and again, I know what's going to happen, but this volume ends on such a cliffhanger, and there's so much, like, emotional rot feelings in this particular cliffhanger. I just, and also it's funny, like, I've said this before with this manga, but Kaito is great at balancing the drama and the like, grounded human, like, growing up drama with, like, genuine, funny parts that, again, they feel like teenagers. They feel like they're doing realistic dumb stuff to make each other laugh, and they feel like friends, but this particular volume, we have Toma playing baseball. He's on the baseball team, and he's kind of the best one on the team. He's definitely one of their strongest players, and our other characters supporting him in that. There's also the athletics carnival at school. They're just doing stuff. They're being friends. They're hanging out, and then but with all this kind of tension underlying of, like, oh, I'm going to take this opportunity to get closer to this person, and yeah. Blue Flag is wonderful. Everyone should read it. It's one of the series that I prioritize in buying because I just love it so much. And I know that it will make me cry again because I know that I've read it all, but I reading this, I was still like, like, I know exactly what's going to happen, but I still gasp and, like, get so caught up because, again, you really care about these kids. You want good things to happen to these kids, and they deserve good things. Taichi is disgustingly relatable. Futaba, for me especially, is disgustingly relatable. All of these kids, I think people will be able to see parts of themselves in all of these kids and their struggles. And if you've ever been a teenager, which literally everyone over the age of 13 has, or currently is, then, oh my goodness, a lot of this will apply to you. Just in the feelings, just in the hardness of being a teenager. Especially being a teenager with feelings. Yeah, it's great. Check out Blue Flag. Buy it, support Viz, and once you read it, come and cry to me, and then we can cry together. So that's it. I mean, there's not actually a huge amount of books here. It's about normal size, but there was some exciting debuts. A lot of stuff that I've already read, like Hell's Paradise and Perfect World and Blue Flag and Spy Family. But really exciting to own them in print, in my opinion, because these are all series that I want to own in print, and I'm perfectly happy in supporting. Let me know your thoughts on any of these new titles, any of these continuing titles as well. Some of the older stuff that I have, or just the brand spanking new debuts. You guys know I love hearing your thoughts. Are you emotional over almost every single one of these volumes like I am? Or are you not as emotionally involved with the comics that you read? Let me know. Whether you agree with me or totally disagree, I love reading all of your comments, as always. And, you know, never be afraid of leaving long comments. You guys know I adore those. Just please be respectful. That's all I ever ask. As for this coming videos, next week we'll have my collection video. That's been pre-filmed, so I'm just currently editing that right now, and that will be posted on the 6th or 7th, I can't remember. So look forward to that. It's not actually as super duper long as my other ones, which is good. Earlier this week, we had the most recent episode of the podcast that I co-host with Ray from Whimsical Pictures, Read Right to Left. And also, if you are a fan of the podcast and you haven't heard, that is now currently available on pretty much every podcasting platform, most notably Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor FM. But Podcaster and Breaker and all sorts of different ones. So if you're a fan of podcasts or a fan of that podcast in particular, please support us. We really appreciate it. And if you haven't listened to our podcast, we talk about manga every single month, all different genres, titles, creators. And this most recent episode was about sports manga. A lot of fun, kind of our more lighthearted, not as serious topics comparatively to some of the other stuff we've done in the past. And that was a lot of fun. The upcoming one will be on single volume manga, so I'll send in your questions as well once we're asking for those. As always, the links to my Twitter will be in the description below. You can always get in touch with me there. I'm on it all the time. There's also the link to my book depository affiliate link. So if you are like me and don't live in the US, want free worldwide shipping, especially right now because most of the world's in a global pandemic and we need some entertainment. Hopefully you're staying home and not spreading sickness around. Then Book Depository is a great resource. It will take a little bit of time to get to you, but the pandemic's not going away anytime soon, unfortunately. You don't have to use that link, but I do really appreciate it if you do. What else? I think that's it. Nothing else. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, as always, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye till then.